All right, everyone, for the second part of the podcast, we're going to be talking about a stat that came out about health after the COVID years. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I think it is a great opportunity to look at the nature of man and say, okay, how do we respond? What is the best way to respond to adversity and to stay resilient? So, without further ado, let's get into this stat. According to an article by Dan Witters of the Gallup Institute, and this article was published December 13th, 2023, so very recent, health metrics in a post-COVID world have plummeted by significant margins. So I'll give you those margins. And to be clear, these are self-reported numbers, so most of the time when things are self-reported, they are actually, the answers are worse than they appear. Because people like to be like, oh, no, I'm doing great in this area, when in fact, they're not being objective about the answers they give. These are self-reported numbers, with thousands and thousands and thousands of participants. So you've got a pretty good chance that there's some truth to be found here. So here's some stats. So obesity is up from 2019 by 6%. That's, 2019 was just 5 years ago, so it's up by 6%. These are self-reported numbers, by the way. So people saying that they ate healthy decreased by 5%. So these same people were asked since 2019 these questions, and one of the questions was, did you eat healthy yesterday? And they were asked that multiple times. And the answer was like, yes. But as we got farther in past COVID, the answer's been no. So that's decreased by 5%. And once again, self-reported numbers. And then also people self-reported not eating enough produce, so fruits and vegetables, by a margin of almost 8%. So that dropped almost 8%. People who originally were saying, oh, yeah, I eat enough fruits and vegetables. Now they're like, yeah, I don't. So how does this apply to manliness in the 21st century? Well, first off, let's just all admit the COVID years sucked so bad. They were terrible. I mean, they affected so many people in a million adverse ways. So I am not trying to belittle those years and say, oh, they were great. They weren't. Objectively, they sucked. And no matter where you fall on the political side of things, the COVID years just were the worst, okay? Everybody was a bunch of jackasses. And everybody shut up in their home, so that probably contributed to a lot of these numbers. And the communication between people was shitty. We weren't seeing other people. It was terrible. It was terrible. So not a fan of those years at all. I'm not trying to say that those didn't suck. They did. But, and here's a big but, okay? How we respond as men matters. And that's why I'm bringing up this statistic, because the argument I'm going to make is you don't have to be one of those statistics. If you find yourself having let yourself go a little bit because life was shitty and maybe you're a stress eater. I don't know. I know I am. Maybe if you find yourself as one of those statistics, you don't have to be that. You can choose to change. And this idea of resilience within man's nature that is, first off, very attractive to a lot of people. We should strive for it. We should try and become as resilient as possible. And so when shit happens in our lives, because it will always happen, there will always be things happening that you don't like, that you disagree with, that you feel like you've been given a really shitty hand and like God's spitting on you, like you get that feeling. Like it's that tough. You're in that season of life. You're like, oh, this is the worst. That thing is going to happen, most likely without anything you can do about it. It's going to happen. All you get to choose to do is how you respond. You get to say, what am I going to do as a man in this situation reacting to this terrible event that has happened? The loss of a loved one, whatever it is, as brutal as these things can be, you get to choose how you react. And it is a choice you have to make every single day. Like in this instance, staying healthy is like a choice you try and make every single day. And even though you were locked in your house and you couldn't see people and everybody's depression rates shot through the roof because of this, even though these things were happening, things largely outside of our control, all we could do as men is to step back and say, okay, what are the things that are in my control that I can change? And, this is, once again, the point of this podcast is a man writes the script to his own life, that his choices define his future. That's a big one, choices. Like, you get to make the choices that are going to change the timeline of your life and what that looks like. And so my challenge is try and be resilient. If you find yourself being one of these statistics, then change. You can do it. I have the utmost faith in you. I still am probably working towards this as well, trying to become better in this area. But whatever the event is in your life, this is just one event where it's a couple of years of COVID, which sucked. Whatever the event is in your life, take a step back, take a deep breath, and then assess what you can do in that circumstance. That's all you can do. That's literally all you can do. Or you could just constantly point at the thing and say, well, that thing's making me do X, Y, or Z, and life is terrible, and it's horrible, and I'm never going to be able to get ahead, and this guy's holding me back, that guy's holding me back, and, all these outside things are affecting me. Or you can say, okay, all this shit's happening around me. How do I react? What is the best way to react? And then go and execute. Go react in the best way possible. That's all I have to say on the second part of the podcast. I hope you enjoyed. And I thought that was interesting. The stats that, okay, who would have guessed people got fatter and more unhealthy after COVID? That's a pretty predictable outcome. But my point is, you don't have to be part of the predictable outcome. You can choose to live your life differently. So